Hi, I'm Messi, reviving the ancient Persian wisdom to enrich our modern lives. Once upon a time, there was a mighty king. He was young and handsome. His court was filled with luxury, his lands vast and his power unmatched. He lacked nothing except for one, the taste of true love and desire. Until one day, while out on a royal hunt, he spotted a beautiful handmaiden. With a face radiant as the moon, eyes like dawn, a figure as graceful as a cypress, and steps gentle like the morning breeze. Her single glance stole the king's heart, and her presence arrested the king like an arrow to the heart. The king knew at once that he couldn't live without her. In Rumi's words, his royal heart and soul became the servant to the servant girl. The king ordered his men to bring the girl to the palace. He dressed her in silk, showered her in gold, and gave her every pleasure he knew. He made her the center of his world. For the first time in his life, he felt whole. But love does not obey the rules of the kings and always reveals more than we expect. In Rumi's words, we can never feel complete. We always desire for something more and we always lack something. Like somebody holding a pitcher, searching for water in thirst, but once finding a stream, breaking the vase. Soon the handmaiden fell ill. The fever took over her body. Her rosy cheeks faded. Her slender figure shivered, and her laughter silenced. She withered like a flower, and her sighs could melt even the hardest of the hearts. The king, desperate and terrified, summoned the kingdom's best physicians. They gathered around her, examined her, and gave her every potion and herb known to them. But nothing seemed to work, for they were arrogant. They claimed power and said, "We have the cure for everything and everyone," but never said, "If God wills, we will heal." The handmaiden withered as the king wept beside her, powerless and devastated. His heart was broken and he was shattered. His throne felt empty and his power and treasures meant nothing. In Rumi's words, the girl grew thin from illness, frail as a strand of hair, and the king's eyes wept blood, flowing like a stream in despair. One night, in the depth of his sorrow, the king ran to the mosque. He fell on his knees and begged the divine for a healer, a guide. His prayers pierced the heavens. In Rumi's words, when the waves of the cry rose from the depths of his soul, the oceans of mercy began to boil and roll. He prayed and wept until he fell asleep in his own tears. That night he had a dream. In that dream, a voice told him, "O king, do not fear, for your cure is near. Tomorrow a messenger will come to you from us. Trust him, for we do. He is a wise man, and he will heal the handmaiden." The next morning, as the king was staring impatiently at the gates, a traveler arrived, a wise man, old and calm. He was not a man of many words. He was graceful as the crescent of the moon in the sky. In Rumi's words, he was like a shining sun amidst the shadows. Some say he is the reflection of Rumi's own Shams. The king brought the sage to the palace. He knew at once what was wrong with the handmaiden. In Rumi's words, the scent of every smoke reveals the secrets of the wood it rose from. Although the sage knew the secret of the handmaiden, he asked to be alone with her, because he knew the true healing required a safe space, where one can talk and heart can reveal its secrets without the fear of judgment or exposure. In that sacred space, he sat beside the handmaiden, holding her wrist, not just to take her pulse, but to feel the rhythm of her soul. He was there to truly hear and see her, not to rush to fix her without knowing what she was really going through. He started asking questions about her past, the cities she'd been to, and the people she had known. Her pulse was steady until she heard one name, Samarkand. At that word, her pulse raced, her face changed color, and her eyes welled, and the walls broke. She told the sage about the secret love she had for a young goldsmith in Samarkand. She had been torn from him, and her heart had been dying ever since. The sage nodded in compassion, but gently asked the handmaiden to keep this a secret from everyone, including the king. For some truths are too delicate for the word's noise, and when shared too soon, they lose their power to heal. In Rumi's words, when a seed is planted deep inside the earth, it will turn into blossoms and a beautiful garden. But if you take the seed out too soon, it wouldn't turn into any flowers or plants. The sage went to the king and asked him to send for the goldsmith, for he was the key to her healing. The king sent some messengers to Samarkand with royal gifts and garments. When they found the goldsmith, they told him that the king has heard about his brilliance and he wishes to meet the finest craftsman of gold. The goldsmith, dazzled by the honor and seduced by the royal gifts, left everything and everyone behind. He didn't know what he was running to. He arrived at the palace beaming, never guessing what fate awaited him. The handmaiden was rejoiced. The two were reunited, and her health started to return. But the sage, wise beyond words, saw what no one else could see. He knew that it wasn't true love, so decided to bring its reality to light. He gave the goldsmith a slow-working potion, a tonic that started to sicken him over time. As his beauty faded, his charm withered, and his strength waned, something inside the girl began to shift. His face, once loved, became his dead skies. The girl had fallen in love with his appearance, his outer glow. So when this glow faded, her love for him faded too. And when the goldsmith died, her love died with him too. The goldsmith's greed led him to his death. And the girl began to see not the man she loved, but the projection of her own longing. What once was an obsession turned into clarity, and the king realized the power of letting go and losing control and acceptance. Sometimes losing what we think we want is the only way we can get what we truly need. Keep watching, because what I'm about to tell you is why I made this video in the first place. We are going to take a deeper look into the mirror that Rumi held for us 700 years ago and break down the messages to transform our emotional lives, the way we see ourselves and our relationships. Real peace comes not from holding tighter, but from letting go. The king had everything he wished for, except for one thing he could not control: the heart of another. No amount of power, wealth, or influence can force healing, inner peace, and love. The king's chase to own love mirrors how we often chase people, happiness, goals, thinking they are something to be caught. True satisfaction, though, begins when we surrender control, not when we gain more of it. In relationships, let's let go of possession, because love cannot be bought or commanded. It is something to be invited and understood. Real wisdom begins where the ego ends. The physicians failed not because they didn't know anything, but because they claimed to know everything and have power to heal without invoking the will of God. This tale critiques ego-based knowledge. When we claim to know everything, we close ourselves off from true understanding. The physicians' arrogance blinded them, and their pride closed the doors on healing. How often do we block our own growth because we're too sure we're right? Growing begins with humility. Whether in therapy, medicine, coaching, or relationships and everyday life, admit that we don't have all the answers. Real wisdom doesn't shout, it listens. The sage didn't prescribe a cure, he just listened to the girl. The handmaiden's illness wasn't physical, it was emotional, but nobody had taken the time to ask her story and listen to her. The sage asked her and listened to her and healed her with no potion or herb, but just with empathy and attention. In our relationships, how often do we truly try to listen and hear without interrupting? Real healing often comes not from any advice or solution, but from being deeply seen and heard. Listening is medicine. Pain softens when it flows through the words. And the moment the story is listened to with care, the grief transforms into grace. Behind any anxious heart is a story ready and waiting to be heard. The soul whispers in silence. The sage asked to be alone with the handmaiden because healing happens in stillness and trust. The healing wasn't public, loud, or external. It required intimacy, privacy, trust, and reflection. Like spiritual growth, it can't happen when we are performing for others. If you're seeking healing, go inwards. Find the spaces where you can be raw and real, not judged. Not every story is ready to be told. The sage asked the handmaiden to keep her story a secret. Some truths lose power when they are exposed too soon. The sage asked the girl to keep her story a secret, not to hide it, but to protect it. Because some truths are still growing, and when they are shared too soon, they wither. Everything has a timing. Don't overshare your inner word before it's strong enough to stand. Protect your becoming. Sometimes the heart doesn't need answers, just an unexpected presence. The sage succeeded where the physicians failed. Sometimes the solutions come in the forms we don't expect. The sage didn't look as powerful as the physicians. He didn't claim to be strong and healing. He just observed, listened, and waited. Be open to help from unexpected places. The wisdom you need may not come in the form that you expect or from the people you expect it from, but it will come when you're ready to receive it. Once upon a time, in a small town, there was a teacher, strict, disciplined, and never absent. His students were exhausted. They craved a break, but the teacher seemed unstoppable. No sick days, no rest, just endless lessons. Until one student, sharper than the rest, had an idea. What if they could make the teacher believe he was sick, just by using the power of suggestion? The plan was simple. Each student, as they walked into the class, would look at the teacher and say something like, "Master, are you all right? You don't seem well today." They just wanted to plant the seed of doubt. If enough people say it, maybe he would start to believe it. The next morning, they waited for their brilliant classmate to go in first. He walked into the class, looked at the master, and with genuine concern said, "Master, are you all right? You look pale today." The teacher frowned and said, "I feel fine. What nonsense is this? Go sit down." The second student stepped in. He looked at the teacher and said, "Your eyes look sunken. Your face looks yellow. What's wrong, sir?" As each student echoed the same concern, his confidence began to crumble. His certainty had vanished. He started to feel dizzy and unsure. Was he sweating? Was his vision blurry? His body started to tremble. Was he really sick and too busy to notice? He started to feel angry, weak, and even blaming his wife for not noticing his illness. The student's words had become symptoms. The master rushed home in a panic, ordering the students to follow him. His wife greeted him with confusion, wondering why he was back so early. He snapped, "I'm sick, can't you see? These students notice and they are worried about me. But you don't care about me. Do you hate me that much?" His wife was confused. She said, "You look fine." But the master had already believed the lies. The schoolboys quietly took their places around the room, pretending to study, but secretly watching their plan unfold. The master's wife wanted to bring a mirror. She told him, "Look at yourself. You look fine. There's nothing wrong with you." But the master refused. He accused her and her mirror of lying. He ordered his bed made, convinced that he was going to die. Wrapped in blankets, he groaned and moaned. Even while lying in bed, the master insisted that the schoolboys keep studying and reading loudly. The students saw that they couldn't get rid of him, so the clever boy had another idea. Suddenly, he stood up and declared, "Master, our voices are giving you a headache. Is it worth for the small fee that you earn from teaching us, risking your health?" The master groaned. "You're right. My head is splitting. Leave me. Go home, all of you." The schoolboys bowed, faking sadness. "We'll pray for your recovery, master," hiding their joy. But once they ran out, they were like birds freed from the cage. Their mothers weren't amused seeing them back from school so early. They accused the children of skipping classes, but the children swore that the master had fallen ill. The next morning, the mothers went to visit the master and make sure their children didn't die. As they arrived at the master's house, they saw him wrapped in blankets, preparing for his death. The mothers wouldn't believe their eyes. The master had never fallen ill before. But the master told them, "I wasn't aware that I was sick either, until your kids brought that to my attention. I was so committed and busy with my work that I had forgotten about myself." Now, what just happened here? You might smile at the schoolboy's clever trick, but the true magic of this tale lies in what it reveals about us, how easily our minds can be influenced and how we can protect ourselves. Let's break down the powerful life lessons this tale teaches us. Repetition shapes reality. The master wasn't sick until he heard he was. Just like the master, we often mistake the external noise for our internal truth. That's how self-doubt creeps in, not from facts, but from echoes, especially by people we trust the most. If you keep hearing "you're never enough" or "you're too much," at first you defend yourself, but over time you start internalizing those echoes and beliefs. You start second-guessing yourself, suppress your feelings, and don't express your feelings anymore. You silence yourself, not because they were right, but because the repetition rewrote your truth. When you don't have a strong inner compass, you'll follow whatever voice is the loudest. When you lack self-awareness, you're open to suggestion, both good and bad. Suggestibility is the tendency to accept and act on what others suggest. The teacher's lack of self-check made him vulnerable to outside influence, manipulation, and gaslighting. Self-knowledge isn't just spiritual advice, it's survival, as there was also a subtle power reversal in this tale. Students gained power over the authority figure just by using suggestion. Just because many people say it doesn't make it right. The teacher didn't believe he was sick at first, but as more and more students joined in and suggested it, he started believing. That's how easily we trade our internal signals for external approval. From peer pressure to cancel culture, we have seen it. The louder the external noise, the quieter our instincts become. The master never took a break until the universe found a way to force one. This reflects toxic productivity. When people ignore their needs, nature or others find a way to force rest. The body always sends the bill. Even casual comments carve deep beliefs. Students used verbal cues repeatedly, acting as a stimulus, eventually conditioning their teacher's physical and emotional response. They simply suggested, yet those harmless words rewired their teacher's truth. Gaslighting doesn't have to seem malicious. Subtle remarks, even from the well-meaning people, can shape someone's self-image or confidence without us realizing. Every word you say either builds someone up or breaks them down. Speak like it matters, because it does. Once upon a time, a man caught a little bird, hoping to make a quick, delicious meal. But suddenly the bird looked up and said, "Dear master, you've eaten so many cows and camels in your life. Can a tiny bird like me really satisfy you? Let me go, and I'll give you 3 golden pieces of advice." The man raised an eyebrow. 3 pieces of advice? From you? "Yes," said the bird. "I'll give you the first one while I'm still in your hand, the second one once I'm safely perched on a wall, and the third one when I reach the top of that tree." Curious, the man agreed. So the bird gave him the first lesson. Never believe the impossible, no matter who says it and how confidently it's told. The man nodded and set the bird free. The bird flew to the wall and continued, "Don't regret and mourn what is already gone. Let it go." Then from the top of the tree, the bird delivered the twist. "Too bad you let me go. Inside me is a rare jewel, 10 times bigger than my whole body. You could have been rich for life." The man gasped. He panicked and hit his head against the wall and cried, "What a fool I am! Come back!" The bird chuckled. "You didn't even understand the first 2 lessons I gave you. I told you not to believe the impossible, and yet you believed a jewel 10 times bigger than my whole body could fit inside me. I also told you not to regret the past, and here you are, crying over something already gone." The man asked in despair, "What is the 3rd piece of advice?" The bird said, "Why would I waste another piece of wisdom over someone who doesn't practice what he already knows?" And then it flew away. Now let's break down the lessons Rumi hid in this amazing fable. We fall for the lies not because they are convincing, but because they feed our ego, greed, and fears, and we want them to be true. Rumi reminds us that the truth should be tested, not just trusted. There is no way that a jewel 10 times heavier and bigger than the bird's whole body and weight could fit inside it, but the man instantly believes it because it matches his desire. Like how we believe it's possible to lose 10 kilos in 5 days or be happy in a toxic relationship. When we grieve over what has passed, we are not mourning the loss. We are mourning the version of ourselves that could have acted differently, a version that didn't exist. Regret is emotional torture. It keeps you stuck reliving the same pain while the world moves forward without you. The man regrets setting the bird free and mourns over a jewel he could never have. When you miss an opportunity, say the wrong thing, or lose something or someone, overthinking doesn't undo it. It just robs you twice, once from the loss and once from the peace. If the soil isn't ready, even the richest seed won't grow. The bird saves the most important lesson for last. Wisdom is not just about what is told, it's also about who's ready to hear it. Trying to give life advice to someone who is mentally and emotionally closed off, in denial, or mocking just leaves you frustrated and them unchanged. Choose your audience wisely. Not everyone who hears you is truly listening. Knowledge without practice is useless. The man agreed to both lessons but broke them instantly. Most of us know what we should do, but we actually don't do it. If wisdom doesn't change the way we behave, it's just decoration. Like how we know comparing ourselves to others kills our joy, but we keep scrolling through Instagram feeling worse with every swipe. Or we know that the sleeping is essential, but we stay up past midnight. Rumi reminds us that information is not transformation. Every stage of the bird's movement reflected a deeper shift in power and emotional attachment. The lessons are given based on the man's emotional state. In his hand, the man has full control. He is greedy and reactive, so the bird gives a simple truth. On the wall, the bird has some freedom and the man is calm and ready to receive an emotional lesson on regret. On the tree, the bird has full distance and freedom, so it reveals a hard truth about the man's failure to apply wisdom. Wisdom shouldn't be dumped all at once. It should be delivered by timing, awareness, and intention. Sometimes the smallest stories carry the biggest truths. Thanks for watching. If this video gave you a fresh perspective, please give it a like and subscribe for more timeless insights. And remember, don't just learn the lesson, live it. Until next video, stay wise and stay well.